Hitting the streets this past weekend in multiple South Dakota cities, including Sioux Falls, Pierre, and Aberdeen. It was part of the 50-51 Project's hands-off protest with 50 movements in 50 states. Well, now that the signs are down and the crowds have gone home, many are asking what happens next. Our Beth Warden spoke with organizers about their next steps and their hopes for lasting change. It is our 5:30 top story.
After the hands-off demonstration in Sioux Falls and other parts of the state over the weekend, those who are a part of the organizations that participated are meeting once again to plan their next steps. Just as the crowds gathered across the nation to represent their concerns in a changing government,
stand up and be an ally.
So did South Dakotans. Kelly Flanagan wants to set the record straight. She was not a paid protester and only saw familiar faces.
I saw friends, I saw neighbors, I saw people that I've worked with. There were no paid protesters.
She saw South Dakotans raising a voice for their concerns.
Not being able to have due process. Veterans, the retired people, the children, the indigenous people, the immigration. That's a huge, all those people have legitimate concerns about what's going on with the government.
Allison Renville with Tiwaka is calling for unity and understanding of all races, cultures, and walks of life as the group moves forward.
It's really important for us to keep creating those spaces, but at the same time, recentering the fact that this is about the struggles of all Americans.
The next step is already planned. The location in the state yet to be determined.
50-51 is going to sponsor a statewide event on April 19th. And I'll be there for every rural South Dakotan that can't be there.
The hope is by continuing to show up, calling politicians, and raising awareness to the issues important to them, change can take place.
They learn and go out into their community and have conversations and do the work on the ground and be uncomfortable. It's going to be a big lift to get everybody on board.
We are not okay! Thank you for coming out today. God bless!
It feels like we might actually have a chance of doing that right now, so hopefully we can keep the momentum going.
In Sioux Falls, Beth Warden, Dakota News Now.
Several organizations partnered with the hands-off protest. We do have links to those at dakotanewsnow.com.